doesn't it?
I think so.
You think so? Brilliant. I think if that happened to me, I would completely freak out. Yeah? I don't know you, but I believe God speaks. I believe God's spoken to me. But the idea of burning bushes and all of that is just a little bit much. But I believe in a God that speaks to us in ways that we can cope with as individuals. And I'm going to tell you some stories. All the stories I tell you are true. They're not made up. They're not anything but the absolute truth. And we'll look a little bit about whether God still speaks to us today. But I thought, when I start with a story of a member of our family who was doing a degree at university. They were middle-aged and they'd been working, and they were then doing a degree, and the degree was going really well, and that person was on course to get a really good result. But then in their last year they were told, oh, well, actually, if you want to get this result, there's this thing happening at what was then called the NEC in Birmingham, and really you need to be there. You need to go to that. That will give you the information you need to improve your work and will help you get the grade you want. And so this person phoned me NEC and said, I need a ticket. And they said, sold out, it's completely full. We can't take anybody else, so you can't. And he was feeling really low and really struggling, thinking, actually, I've done everything I can to get my degree, the course I want to do, but this one thing is going to stop me and I can't do anything about it. And he went on a walk. He was walking through some local kind of woods, and he was kind of having a moan at God. We do that sometimes, don't we? And said, why, Lord, when I've done all of this work, why didn't you do what I needed you to do? And God just said, just go. Now, I think I'd freak out at that point. Apparently he looked round and there was no one there. And he said, and he just carried on mumbling to himself and saying, I just wish I could go to this thing. It would make it so much easier. My results would be better. And again, just go. And he went home, he told his wife, and his wife kind of went, yeah, you're clearly going nuts. They kind of talked about it and kind of went, well, maybe you should go. Maybe you should try and phone him again, see if you can get a ticket. He phoned again, nothing happened. So that night in bed, in a dream, he kind of got this storyline fed to him throughout the night and said, just go, put on your best suit, go to the NEC, but don't go in through this door, the main entrance. Go round the side of the building, there's another door. Go through that door, and there's a corridor. Go down the corridor, and at the end of the corridor there's a table. On the table there'll be a ticket. Imagine what his wife said the next morning when she told him that. But she said, well, get your suit on then, off you go. And in faith, he got up, had a shower, had a shave, got his suit on, went to the NEC, and all the time thinking, I'm going to look like a right fool. Got to the entrance to the NEC and like, I'm not supposed to go in that way. I'm going to go this way, but I know there won't be a door. Went round, and exactly where he thought he should be, there was a door. And he opened the door thinking, there's not going to be a table. And he walked down the corridor, and there was a table. And on the table, there was one ticket. God speaks. He got the ticket, he went to the event. I don't know if it changed his result on his degree, but he asked God, and God spoke. It kind of feels pretty close to a burning bush moment, in that he actually heard a voice, and then in a dream kind of was told more. But I actually do believe that God speaks to us all. He promises it in the Bible. In Exodus, which is where this is from, he says, if you listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commands and keep all of his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians. Obviously, he was bringing plagues and all sorts of stuff happening in that time. But he promised those who listen to him and do what he says, actually, he will be with you. And it's kind of a strange one, because have you ever been in a situation where you've answered the phone? Not these days, mobile phones cheat because it tells you who it is. But have you ever been in a situation where you answer the phone and, like, is it somebody ringing you, isn't it? It's the Lord there, Slade, he wants to speak to you.
It's what? It's a delivery company.
It's a delivery. It's delivering a burning bush, won't you, man? But do you remember when it used to be a normal house phone and the phone would ring and you'd go, I wonder who this is? and you'd pick it up, and then you'd hear a voice, and you'd recognise them. And my older brother, bless him, he's no longer with us, but my older brother was a little bit one of these guys that he'd be in your life for a few months and then he'd disappear. And about 3 or 4 years later he'd be back. And that's the way he lived, and we kind of learned to accept that. And I can remember, well, not long after we first got married, we got the phone rang, and I answered it, and he went, "Bet you don't know who this is." And immediately, even though I hadn't spoken to him for 5 years about it, I knew his voice. And that's what God promises to us. Actually, if we pay attention, if we learn to accept that he will speak to us, you will recognise his voice. My younger brother was a farmer for a long time, in his kind of teenage years. And one of the things he always wanted to have was his own sheep in his own field. And so he worked on a farm, but in between the farm and home, there was this small piece of land, and he'd rented it, and he bought a flock of sheep. And so not only was he doing the main farming, but he was doing his own farming. And one time we went up to stop with him, and he said, "Come and see the sheep." Fair enough, they're sheep. But he was really excited about it, so we went and looked at the sheep, and we did that thing, you lean on the gate, looking at the sheep, and the sheep all there going, "Who are you?" But then my brother said, "Call them." "What do you mean? I don't know the names." He said, "Call them." He said, "Make this noise." And he kind of made a noise. I'm like, "No, not that." Is lamb on the menu today? And he did this noise, and they looked up, because he thought, "Hang on, I know that voice." But then when I did it, they always went, and went back to eating the grass. But as soon as my brother made that noise loud enough, not only did they all look up, they all came. Because the sheep recognised the shepherd. And it says in the Bible that we are the sheep, and he is the shepherd. And so I encourage you to spend time reading the Bible, spend time talking about God, spend time listening. We're not very good these days. We're so surrounded by noise, by busyness, by other distractions. Actually just spending time in quiet can be difficult. God usually speaks to me, not in an audible voice, but God usually speaks to me during the night. Something happens. I now leave, my phone is by the side of the bed, much to my wife's annoyance. And if I wake up thinking, I think that might have been God, I have to put it in my notes on my phone. Otherwise I can't get back to sleep. And that's why Sarah's here. Because God told me in the middle of the night one night to write a job description for Sarah, even though we didn't really know each other that well. It's why I'm here, because I was moving on from the job I was doing, and this job came up, and we talked about doing it, and maybe I should apply. And the lovely lady Rita, who used to work here, sent me all the details, apart from the salary. You probably remember this story, actually. And I looked through all the details, and by the end of reading it, I determined it was my job. I looked at, oh yeah, that's me. Looked, perfect. Where's the salary? I thought it can't be volunteer, it's got to be a salary. So I emailed her to Rita back and said, "You don't appear to have mentioned the salary." And by now, the job was mine. And she emailed back and said, "It's this." And it was more than 20% less than I was earning where I was before. So I had a bit of a strop. Somebody else in the room had a bigger strop. How did you know? And we got to the point where we were both so frustrated because we thought this is what God's telling us to do, but there's this hurdle. And then that night we used to pray before we went to sleep and read the Bible and stuff. Now I'm too old for that, I just go to sleep. But we were sitting in bed and Andy threw a Bible at me. There's romance for you. Andy threw a Bible at me and said, "Find something encouraging." Threw it back. And I said, "What does Philippians 3:14 say?" Because I haven't got a brain that can memorise bits of the Bible. Terry has, he plays that out. And I said, "What does Philippians 3:14 say?" She found it. And it kind of went, paraphrasing, God said, "Shut up, get on with it." It's not what it says. Look up Philippians 3:14. It talks about striving on towards a goal that I have set for you. But in my words, it was, shut up moaning, trust me, and get on with it. And that's why I applied for the job. And that's why Ursula and others stupidly agreed for me to do it. But I just encourage you that God does speak today. And it'll be a bit like in that scene there with Moses. You won't get burning bushes. If it's burning bushes in this area, it's an arson attack, for goodness sake. But the reality is, God will find a way to speak to you. It might be audible. It might be... You know, sometimes you get that kind of that feeling, that that voice in the back of your head going, go on, you know you want to, you know you should, and it won't go away. I believe that's God. I believe you do too. It's that little bit. I've mentioned it to Tim once. I call it the pebble in your shoe. You ever put a pair of shoes on and then start to walk and you go, oh, this is my shoe. And the annoyance won't go away because it's just distracting you. I'm not calling God an annoyance, but he will keep speaking to you. He'll keep nudging you until you stop and listen. And so I do believe God speaks today. I do believe we have the opportunity to hear his voice. It says in the Bible in Mark 4:9, those who have ears to hear, let them hear. We just need to make sure we're listening. And the way to do that is by paying attention, taking time, being quiet. Come to him in an opportunity where you go, God, if you want to say something, say something. And it may not be audible. It may be in a TV programme or in a film. It may be through Jesus Christ Superstar. You never know. It might do one day, Crystal. You might understand it one day. You wait till Sarah explains it to you. And actually sometimes when you do what God asks you to do, it's amazing. Nobody saw it. The camera's this way, it's fine. When you hear God's voice and you respond, it can be amazing. I heard a story once, and this is where I'm going to finish after this. I heard a story once of a man he was a Christian, he was a really well-known speaker. He used to go all over the country speaking at churches. And he used to go to places where he would see other speakers. And one of the speakers was somebody, the role he had was to go into churches and pray for people. And he would pray that God would speak to them in some way. And sometimes God would give him images in his mind or words to say to these people to encourage them. And this guy had seen the other people do that and go, I'd really like to do that. I'd really like God to give me the ability to do that. It's a dangerous thing to think, because sometimes God does it and then it's scary. But this guy said, I really, really would like to do it. And at the end of this meeting, he went up to the person that had been praying for different members of the church, and he said, I love what you do. I'd love to be able to do that. And the guy said, well, come and do it then. He said, sorry? He said, well, I'm doing another event in about a month's time. Why don't you come? And so the guy was so flustered by it, he thought, well, I'll say yes, then he'll forget. So he said, yeah, I'll put it in my diary. About 3 weeks later, the guy phoned him and said, you know, you said you were going to come. Well, it's this day, I'll come and pick you up, and then you can come. And he was too scared to say no. So they go to the event together, and they arrive all the way. This guy's praying in the car going, please may nobody turn up. Please may we've got the wrong night. Please may he just do it and I can watch. But then they get there and the church is absolutely full. 200-300 people there. And the guy says, right, so takes him aside, gets him ready. He says, well, what we're going to do is I'm going to do some stuff at the beginning. He said, when it gets to the praying bit, you can sit there, I'll sit here, and anybody who wants to come up can come up to you or to me. And you can pray for them. And then if God says anything to you to tell them, you can do that. This guy now needs to find the toilet really quickly. He's terrified. The night goes on and stuff happens. And the first person to come up to him, the other guy's there praying and you see it's very serious. And he's sitting here and he's thinking, please God, don't send anybody to me. They all want to go and see him and not me. But then this lovely lady comes up and sits opposite him. And he has no idea who she is. And she said, I'm going through a really tough time at the moment. I've got difficult decisions to make. Would you pray for me? He was like, yeah. And he prayed and he said, well, let's spend a little time being quiet and we'll just wait to see if God said anything. And he says, and then he felt God say, well, he thought he was going insane. Because the words that came into his mind were, you can dance, you can jive, having the time of your life. Hopefully you know that's from ABBA. If you're not, you shouldn't be in it. But from Dancing Queen. And he's now sitting there thinking, right, the church is full. This guy's full in prayer. And I've got Dancing Queen to tell this woman. who's telling me she's going through a really difficult time and I don't know what to do. And he's now praying that God would come and end everything, take us all to heaven. He said it reached a point where he was like, God, there's got to be something else you want to say. And it came in his mind again and again and again. And after too long, he thought, I've got to say something. And he said, well, I hope this makes sense to you. But I just want to say that God said, you can dance, you can jive, having the time of your life. And the woman burst into tears. It's like, that's the end of my ministry. I can never go anywhere again. It's gone terribly wrong. I'm really sorry. I'm a terrible Christian. And then she went, no, wait. The thing I'm struggling with is I'm actually the minister's wife. And for the last few years, we've been running a dance group at church, doing kind of dance in church services and different things. And the people that have been doing it with me have all gone. I'm on my own. And I think I should quit. I think I should cancel it. But I don't want to. God said, you can dance, you can jive. God speaks today. And I want to encourage you, whether you believe in God, whether you're not there or whether you really don't, I believe God speaks. Sometimes it's through words in a burning bush, sometimes it's through other people. There are so many people in this room who I believe God has spoken through to me. So it's about spending time with him. So I'm going to stop talking now, we're going to pray and then we'll have our final song, please. Lord, I thank you that you love each one of us. I thank you that you can inspire us through your words, through other people, through the Bible, through seeing things on TV and on the internet. Lord, I pray we learn, like those sheep learn my brother's voice. I pray that we may learn your voice, the ultimate shepherd. Just help us, Lord, to know that you speak today. Amen.